All right, we're live.
Hello,
So
everybody.
I have She Reads the Stars. Amelie. Am I saying it right? Amelie?
That's actually right. Yeah.
Amelie?
Nice
Okay.
one.
Amelie is here, and we're going to start talking about astrology. So let me get this straight. You're a sidereal astrologer?
Yes, that's right. I'm actually a true sidereal astrologer. So if you're listening, you've never heard that before, you'll want to stick around because I'll explain what that true sidereal actually means. And it's really fascinating.
Okay. I consider myself, I'm not really an astrologer, I'm an astrotheologist. I know how you basically found me, but I basically use
Yeah.
tropical. So I'm very interested in here. The way I explain people the difference between the two astrologies, basically Western and Eastern, is like say me and you are at a party, right, Emily, and
Yeah.
we're like, all right, let's leave, let's go somewhere and grab food, but we don't know the area, so we get into each of our cars and we plug it into the GPS. Now the GPS may take us different ways, but we end up at the same place. So that's basically the way that I explain people. So let's take it
That
on.
does
So
make
what do
sense.
you how does sidereal, how did you get into it?
Yeah, that's a interesting story. So I guess I'll start by saying that growing up, I didn't really ever think about astrology.
Mhm.
I didn't have any particular interest in it. I remember going through school. People would obviously mention zodiac signs every now and again, usually the girls, in a very pop culture fashion.
Mhm.
And I never even used to know all of them. That's how little I knew about it. I just knew what mine was in tropical, my
Mhm.
sun sign, that is. And it wasn't until a little bit later on through high school, which I was actually, I think, in my final year when, I don't know, like I can't use trigger words, but when the COV,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
yeah,
go
when
like
that
this.
happened,
I just do
yeah,
this.
yeah, that one happened. And that was what was my first conspiracy to wake myself up. So from there, that's when I started diving deep into all these different topics. I remember all my friends thought I was crazy at the time.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I hadn't reached astrology yet, but I feel like if you really are a deep truth seeker, or at least there's two types of truth seekers in the world. There's the ones that are very third dimensional. They're more interested in the politics, the matrix, the systems, the
Mhm.
government. That's the truth that they like to seek. And then there are a level of truth seekers that definitely dive deep into the esoteric. They are more familiar with the more subtle energies of the world, frequencies, geometry.
Mhm.
And that's where I eventually ended up at. So through researching all those different matrix lies and truths, I eventually found myself at a YouTube video that was talking about sidereal astrology. And I was, a little bit interested. I actually really liked the speaker. And so I was saying, okay, well, I kind of have heard this before where supposedly we have different zodiac signs. I think I had also been looking deep into the Bible beforehand as well, trying to read the Bible from a sense of that when you read the Bible, it's talking about your body and then also the cosmos. So astrotheology. I'm nowhere near as deep as you are, Micah, but I
Okay.
had your videos for that to look through those ones.
Mhm.
So I had already become familiar that, wow, if the Bible is such an advanced book, as well as many other ancient scriptures that seem to all be talking about the cosmos to some extent, astrology must have some sort of significance. So that was kind of the stepping stone. And then it wasn't until I found that sidereal astrology video that I realized that there was a rabbit hole to go down when it comes to astrology. And that's what really interested me. That's when I was saying, oh my goodness. So most of the world is following an outdated astrological system that doesn't actually track and follow the current sky. And that's basically what dove me deep into that. I realized that once I started to learn it a little bit, I didn't really resonate with my tropical chart as much as I did with the sidereal chart. So I wanted to
So
really
what is
learn
your
how to read
sign? What is your
charts.
sidereal? What is your sun sign in sidereal?
In true sidereal, it's Leo, and
Okay.
then in tropical, it's Virgo.
Mhm.
Obviously, even if I read my true sidereal chart, I still have Virgo present. Although I'm I really do suit the fire dominant energy. My mom always tells me, Emily, you have to slow down. You have to stop. She'll literally force me to sit down and watch a movie because I'm so proactive and driven and ambitious. So I really do more so resonate with very fire and air dominant elements as opposed to water and earth. So that's where I don't think I really ever truly resonated with that tropical chart. Although, as you would know, in a chart, you have every single zodiac sign. They're all there playing an influence in your life and in your physiology, etc. But yeah, when I saw the true sidereal chart, that's when I was like, okay, it just clicked with myself. So I went and studied it one-on-one with a guy named Athen Chimenti. Some of you may have heard of him. He's got the company Mastering the Zodiac. So he was really the only true sidereal astrologer that I could find that educates astrologers. But he was great. And he also has the program Prometheus, which is the one that I use. And it's the only one that I know of that uses that true sidereal part. So basically, to explain the difference between sidereal or Vedic or Eastern astrology, as you mentioned, versus the true section, that word just means the exact degrees of the constellations. So when you actually look at the sky, you notice that all the constellations are they take up a unique degree of the ecliptic, and that ecliptic is just the path of the sun and the planets. So what it's really doing is just trying to replicate the actual sky and cosmos as much as possible. Tropical and as well as sidereal astrology, they have divided the zodiac constellations equally by 30 degrees, which the only thing is that if you were to compare it to astronomy, which is just tracking the movements of the planets along the ecliptic, it starts to veer off accuracy. So that's why I guess there is a bit of a split in the realm of astrology of what people align with and what they choose to go with. For myself, true sidereal astrology just makes sense. To me, it just makes sense that if you're going to be talking about what constellation the sun is in, it doesn't make sense to be saying that we're in Sagittarius season right now, which tropical astrologers are saying, but just 2 days ago, the sun moved into the Scorpio constellation. So that's the difference between actually tracking the visible stars in the sky versus using a
correct me if
computer
I'm
program.
wrong, but Ophiuchus that you work with is between Scorpio and Sagittarius, right?
It is, yes. So the sun technically hasn't reached Ophiuchus yet, although this is where I differ again from a lot of, I guess they call themselves true sky sidereal astrologers. They add in that sky word, which just means they use 13 zodiac signs. I actually don't. I only use the 12 zodiac signs. So Ophiuchus is the possible 13th zodiac sign, and that in the sky is situated really on the house of Scorpio. Yes, when you use Stellarium or an astronomy program, it says that the sun or Mercury or the moon is currently in Ophiuchus, but I read that as it's in Scorpio, simply because of quite a few different reasons. I think esoterically, and you would probably know a lot about this, Micah, that 12 is just a much more significant number when it comes to the zodiac in the way that it relates to the Bible as well and many of those other books, like the 12 the 12 disciples, 12 cranial nerves. There's 12
Yeah,
major
the
systems
ancients
of the body.
used tropical.
Yeah.
Not to mention that they didn't mention the serpent or the serpent bearer at times, but
Yeah, that's right.
yes.
Because it's still there, and I think it still does play a part. But if anything, you can read the energies of Ophiuchus and Scorpio and blend it together rather than separating them. Because there's 12 houses, and 12 is just divisible. You know, when you put 13, in my opinion, I think that the 13th is the sun. Or the son of God. I think that is the 13th placement, because if you put in Ophiuchus and you've got 13 zodiac signs, then you're putting the sun as the 14th, which symbolically doesn't really make sense historically. So that's why I really just use the 12. You know, there's 3 modalities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and then there's the 4 elements: earth, air, water, and fire. But when you add in Ophiuchus, no one really knows what to place it as. They're just saying either ether or they say water or fire because it's next to Scorpio and Sagittarius. But it's still that now we've just got an outlier. So for me, I only use the 12. That's a long-winded way of saying it. But when you mentioned that the ancients used tropical astrology, what's interesting is that In the Bible, it 100% is a tropical astrology. Although, in my opinion, that's because they were using, I guess, sidereal astrology at the time. But that is when the seasons and the constellations aligned, which is how tropical astrology came about. So I believe that at that time, they were still observing the visible sky. And so that would be the tropical astrology that we have today. So do you want me to go
Mhm.
into explaining the
This is your
real
this is
the
your
numbers?
hour. This is your hour. You can go anywhere you
Okay, I'll
want.
take it.
Go for it.
Okay, we're going to go into numbers now. So basically, the tropical astrology, that's a system, and then sidereal, that's a different system. So they're calculated differently. Now we've got to talk about the precession of the equinox, which is basically the movement of the constellations along the ecliptic. Now, it's very slow and it occurs at a rate of 1 degree every 72 years. And
Which coincidentally happens to be the average lifespan of a man.
which is that I didn't even put those two together, so that's very interesting. So
Mhm.
yeah, it like that makes a lot of sense because the thing is that we can't actually see the movement in our lifetime. We really need
Correct.
to use those, astronomy programs or at least chart it down in books to really keep track because it moves
Mhm.
so slowly. But the thing is that it actually does happen. So supposedly, tropical astrology is just when the seasons and the constellations aligned. So that's how you have the spring equinox starts as Aries, and Aries starts the zodiac. And supposedly that happened in 1 BC, which is when the tropical astrology is kind of set. So majority of the Western or mainstream astrologers still stick to this system. However, now that it's been roughly about 2024 years, I guess you could say, the constellations are like on average, because they're all different sizes, but more or less 28 degrees off accuracy. So that's why you'll hear people saying, oh, in the sidereal system, you're a different zodiac sign. It's because they're almost a whole sign
Well, it's
off
also, for
accuracy.
example, I think Virgo's a month and a half long, Scorpio's only
Yeah, it
6 days, and
yeah,
go
so
on
it's
so on and so
very
forth.
yeah, it's very on average, like because you're right, Virgo is the largest constellation in the sky. Pretty sure it takes up about 45 degrees of the ecliptic, so that's way more than the 30 degrees that these astrology systems have separated them
Mhm.
into. So yeah, realistically, when I'm talking about what season we're in of the year, Virgo is going to take up half of September and the whole of October.
And did you know that before the Jews, which Aries began the year, that's why you have the Passover, and the sun passes over the equator. Um,
Yeah,
in the Egyptian times, Virgo was the beginning of the year. It was the wheat harvest where all the virgins would go out. That's why it's a virgin holding a wheat stalk, because the women would go
yeah,
out and they would gather the bread for the year, gather the wheat to make the bread for the year. So that was when it was too. So it has changed a little bit over time, but it makes sense that
yeah.
it would be Virgo if it was that large of a constellation.
That's right, and that does make sense. As well as we've got to take into account that supposedly where tropical astrology was set, that was in the northern hemisphere because I live in the southern hemisphere. And
Correct.
so when Aries typically starts the year, it's autumn for us or fall.
Yes, yes.
So
So
it's kind
it's
of,
very simple with you guys. Like Aries would like Libra would be wine season, but for you guys it would be Aries.
yeah,
Everything is reversed in the southern hemisphere, and that's because the ancients, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Babylon, all of them, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, everybody that's written these Western ancient texts were all in the northern hemisphere. Absolutely correct.
yeah,
If the Bible came from Australia, then we'd be using that reverse system.
exactly. That makes a lot of sense. And then we go into the theories of the old world and the great resets and the fact that Europe in general has so many ancient buildings in comparison and cathedrals in
I'm
comparison to
sorry I have to do
Australia.
this. We have a comment. Now, I don't know if Nick's talking about me or you, to be honest. But let's go ahead and just thanks, Nick. Anyway,
I'm not
so
your
go
I'm
on.
not your typical looking astrologer, am I?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's the idea of how Europe just has so many ancient buildings and that like in comparison to Australia, where personally I don't really know if I believe the whole Captain Cook settling on Australia and the story about that about 200 years ago. But what I do know is that there's no many ancient buildings at all in Australia. It's very, so maybe there wasn't even really civilizations here in the past back in that old world.
Well, it was a criminal island for a while, wasn't it? That's where the British
Yeah,
settled
like
there.
as of since the 1700s, they say. But if we're talking about the Great Reset, that would have been like, I don't know when, but I'm making an assumption that possibly just before the 1700s.
Okay.
Possibly from like listening or looking at some of the chronology, but no one really knows.
Micah love, yeah, but that one was for Amelie. Okay. All right, fine, be that way.
That's
So,
funny.
okay, so when did you do your first chart? Tell me, talk to me through that process, because obviously you get better and quicker as you continue.
100%.
But I mean, I don't think people understand just the amount of knowledge that you have to know. You have to know asteroids. You have to know whole side charts. You have to know, there's so much that you need to know before you even step foot into a chart. Can you take us
100%.
through how people can learn that?
Yes. So it definitely takes time, practice, and reading books. Like for myself, I love reading books that were written before the 1900s. I think that they've just got amazing information in comparison to the more modern books. But also, a lot of it is really thanks to myself actually investing in myself to learn astrology with a professional one-on-one with Athen. That obviously helped heaps. And then from there, it was just consistently practicing reading the charts. I use equal houses on that, True Sidereal Prometheus program where it gives you the exact degrees of the constellations. I use the 4 royal stars of Persia. So that's supposedly the fixed. They call the compass points in the sky. It's Antares, Regulus. I'm pretty sure hold on, I'll get it up.
Okay.
The I want to actually show you what the chart looks like anyway. So I'll just,
if you
is
need
it
to share
possible
your
to share my
screen, if you
screen?
need to share your
Yeah.
screen, you can. I'll put it up. Please.
Perfect. Oh yeah, Aldebaran and what's the other one? Fomalhaut. Yes, I don't know why I had a mind blank on those ones, but they make the compass points of the sky. So I definitely use those just because I know some people, if you know anything about astrology, people like to know what house system you use and what fixed stars you use. If I go entire screen. Oh yeah, that's probably better. All right, let me know when you can see this.
It just popped up and then it disappeared. Do it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did that work now?
No, you got to go down to present. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know why it keeps doing this. Hold on. Where it goes to present and then you just share screen.
Maybe if I just do my entire screen instead.
You know what you're doing? You're maximizing it and then you're minimizing it. You have to leave it maxed, and then what you have to do is you have to go to the actual page. You're not physically going to be able to see me. You're going to be able to scroll on the sheet. So maximize that and then switch the screen. There it is. I got it.
Okay, cool.
There we go.
Technology, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is what the charts look like that I read. It looks pretty crazy. I know when I first saw it, I was literally thinking, what the hell am I looking at? But once you read them over and over, it just makes sense. So this is actually the horizon, basically the ground level. So the ascendant is really the constellation that's rising over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. The midheaven is the highest point in your chart. I actually, from studying astrology with Athen, I veered off and just went deep into learning more esoteric ways of reading charts and kind of came to my own sort of intuitive way that I read charts, looking at the midheaven as really your highest potential. The south node, they would talk about how they teach you the south node is more like your past life. And then the north node is kind of like your challenges in this life. Whereas I more so read the south node as your comfort point. It's like you are kind of born, and then this south node is basically not good for you. A lot of people, because obviously where you are comfortable, there's no growth. And this is where I dive deep into the fact or the idea that we live in a mechanical universe, and the zodiac is more or less a matrix mechanism of control.
It is.
And
The
so,
sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, and the
yeah,
zodiac tells the month of the year. It's a perfect calendar.
exactly. It's like a clock. And so we are kind of born with this zodiac imprint. So this is just a transit chart. It's just showing you what's going on in the sky exactly right now. So we know
Mhm.
that the moon's currently in Virgo. And then, as I mentioned, we're currently in Scorpio season with the sun in Scorpio.
Mhm.
But the idea is that I look at the South Node as such an important placement to really hone in on and realize, because it's kind of like your entrapment. It's your comfort zone. It's where you want to stay. It's what's easy for you. It feels like a habit and it's familiar.
Well,
Um,
my astrologer Priscilla. I don't know if you've ever seen me and her talk before. She's
I
an
think I
incredibly.
have actually.
She's actually incredible. The way she explains it is, the sun is your ego, your moon is your shadow self, and your ascendant is actually your true self that's trying to come out. Most people
Yeah.
identify with their sun sign when in reality they should be looking at their ascendant. So, what are your thoughts on that?
That's very similar to myself as well. I think that the sun is it's become so big and so focused on, and everyone's identifying themselves with the sun sign, really
Right.
because of a guy named Alan Leo in the late 1800s who wanted to advertise astrology for pop culture purposes. So he really dumbed it down and simplified it to just the sun sign.
Right.
Before then, no one was really like simply identifying themselves with the sun or one zodiac sign, because the truth is, you aren't just one zodiac sign. Even your sun has so many aspects to it from other planets, and so that flavors a sun in Scorpio for somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
for myself, I really do focus on the rising sign. Is basically how I've read it in past books, is that civilizations, when a new king was born, would look to the constellation rising on the eastern horizon to know what kind of king he would be.
Mm-hmm.
So it is also the self of you that you are rising into. Um, and then you can look at it as well as a bit of a personality placement, but it's so much more specific to yourself than the sun, because the rising sign is constantly moving during the day. So this wheel is kind of spinning. And on average, because they're all different sizes, on average, it's changing every 2 hours. So if you were born 2 hours later, you'd be a completely different rising sign. Whereas your sun sign is the same as
Well, yeah, it's a
whoever was
clock,
born in the
right?
same month
It's
as
a,
you.
it's a
Yeah.
clock, right? So there's 12 zodiac signs, and there's 24 hours a day in a clock. So obviously, the sun spends 2 hours a day in each sign.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, more or less on average, because if you can see, so what's interesting is that there's the three modalities. So Libra is cardinal, Capricorn, as well as Aries and Cancer. So they're all cardinal. And as you can see, they're the smallest constellations in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
very small and very small. And then on the other side, you've got the mutable signs, which is Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Gemini. And more or less, they are taking up most of the space on the ecliptic, which is very interesting how all them they're opposite each other as well, and they're roughly similar sizes, where the mutable signs are the biggest, the fixed signs are kind of in the middle, and then the cardinal signs are much
Right.
smaller.
Well, they're
So
called
it's
the
almost
fixed
like,
signs because they're fixed in their season, right?
yeah, that is true as well.
They're the
Although,
middle of the season. Taurus is
yeah,
spring, Leo is summer, Scorpio or the eagle is fall, and then you've got Aquarius, which is winter. Those are your four fixed signs.
yeah, that is right. Although, if you think about it, in a few thousand years, the idea is that the um, each zodiac sign would be ruling a new season because of the movement of the constellations.
You're talking about the
So,
slipping.
yeah, kind of like that. Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of the idea. But yeah, going back to that South Node placement. So for these three, I read it very similarly to Pristina. Was her name?
Priscilla.
Was her name Priscilla? Sorry. Yes, I read them very similar to that. Of course, the moon is your emotional body, so it's got so much to do with your desires, your needs. It's almost like because emotions are so volatile, right? Usually, I mean, more stable in an earth sign, but it depends. Although in life, if you really don't satisfy your emotional needs, that's when you kind of experience emotional chaos.
Mhm.
So for a moon in Sagittarius, this person on an emotional need level requires freedom, free speech, free thought, um, like movement, activity. If they feel bored, if they feel caged in, if they feel controlled, that's when they feel like emotionally hollow. Things like depression or just emotional chaos, basically. So the moon is very important in that aspect of really making sure that you're aware of what your emotional needs and desires are, and
Mhm.
then learning to, throughout your life, really satisfy them in order to keep your emotional body in check,
My
basically.
astrologer Priscilla, when she starts doing a reading, the first thing she looks at is the 12th house past life. She doesn't look at anything but that. She starts with that. How do you begin a chart?
Yeah, for myself, it depends. It changes with everyone. I feel as though I very much intuitively read, as in, for some people, I have actually started on the South Node and the North Node because that's where I felt like I needed to start. For
Mhm.
other people, I may simply start with the Sun. And then for other, it really does depend. It's almost like, because when you read a chart, it's almost like telling a story about
Correct.
them and their
It,
life.
it literally
And
is telling a story about them.
exactly. And so in this case, not if you want to look at the Sun as chapter one, not everyone's chart starts at chapter one. Um, for some people, the way that the story just plays out is that I start reading with the ascendant, or sometimes even with the midheaven, whatever I feel most drawn to actually talking about first and going in that order is what I read in that order of.
Mhm. So when
Yeah.
you most people would look at all those lines in the center of that and get like anxiety. They wouldn't know how to
Yeah.
untangle that, how to begin that. This is way more convoluted than a tropical chart, to be honest with you. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of lines because I use a lot of those fixed stars. So that puts in a heap.
mhm,
Don't know why it's
mhm,
not coming up. Okay, let's just use, oh, yeah, there it is. So this is, if I make this bigger, these are all the, hang on, is my mouse working? Okay, we'll just use that. So these are all the aspects. So here it's got moon square Mercury. So the square is a harsh aspect. This is going to bring some challenges. And so as I mentioned, I do use those fixed stars, which are basically all these yellow ones here. So that's
mhm.
going to add more lines, makes it look overcomplicated. But the fixed stars in my readings, I find very important to use. These are just the ones that I use. So our goal is not present
Algo is
in
always
every.
fixed in Taurus, right? I'm sure it's
Yeah,
fixed
yeah,
in
fixed.
Taurus.
Yeah, fixed
Algo is the
star.
demon star, which, by the way, do you remember the Christian Bale Batman movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen that? Lord help
No.
me. I don't even want to ask your age because I'm going to throw up. I'm going to feel so old. The bad guy in the Batman movie was Ra's al Ghul, and he got his name from Al Ghul, the fixed star, the
Yeah,
demon star.
the demon star. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is a real trickster because you have to remember that the zodiac, whether you want to look at the planets as the archons from the, Gnostic texts or the Nag Hammadi library, they it's like your soul gets scanned and imprinted with the right recipe to make sure that you are under control in this life to
Mhm,
some extent. So,
mhm.
awareness of your chart is what gives you back your power. That's why self knowledge and self
The
awareness
way I
was.
the way I explain it is kind of like you're going through life and maybe you have a certain personality or quirks about you and you don't really know why. You get your chart done and it can show you your future and then you can choose to follow that path or divert from it as opposed to being led blindly without even having it.
Yeah, exactly. That's like like I feel like we're all to a certain extent born sleepwalking. And then
Mhm.
the ones who reach this point and go down the path of self knowledge, they become lucid in the dream. And that's when you can really start having, I guess, power over the stars because it'll always be there. You'll always have your natal chart and your zodiac because within our biology and our body is the zodiac. is those planets. There's 7 classical planets, and there's 7 endocrine glands in our body, and then there's 12 zodiac constellations, as well as the 12 major systems of our body, as well as those 12 tissue salts as well that all resonate at their own frequency. And
I was talking about the tissue salts earlier because we gestate for 9 months. That's 9 signs out of the year. We're missing 3 of them. That's why we miss 3 of the cell salts, and it's not a fault of ours, but we do. And then I tell people to take something like bioplasma, which Santos.
And it's through lacking those tissue salts, which the Bible says.
Oh no, you're breaking up, girl. Ugh. You there, girl? Oh, she froze.
Oh, did I? Am I back?
You froze for like 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes? Who are they talking to?
You were talking about the tissue salts.
Oh, okay. That was definitely not 5 minutes. I was like, God, did I just like trip out?
No. It was like 20 seconds. I'm
okay. Yeah. So, what did you hear up to?
You were talking about the tissue salts, and we were talking about the 3 that were missing, and
yeah. So you can get them from the Schussler's tissue salts that you can buy, which I don't know. I guess as you can, I have taken them. I don't know if I've really noticed much of a difference personally. Supplements are interesting, I suppose. Or realistically, we should be able to get these minerals from the soil, but it's so mineral depleted today that it's very hard to actually get these tissue salts from your food. Correct. You can, but it's not the same as it used to be, basically. Right. So, yeah, we're born in sin, what the Bible says, but really that just means that we are born with the mark missed. We missed the mark, so we're born deficient, basically.
Exactly. We have a question here. Parker says, can you see someone's death, or does free will come into play? So there is death astrology. I don't know if you're into that, but I'll let you answer this.
Yeah. Well, I don't look into death astrology. I like to think that we actually do have free will to a certain extent. The more I feel as though the more self-aware you are, the more free will that you have. When you just go to a conference or something in life and you meet different people versus or successful people versus people that are really stuck in the matrix system, 9 to 5 repetitive lifestyle, those people are nowhere near as self-aware as the people you met at the conference that are doing really well in life. Typically people who are more successful, more knowledgeable, and you might have met a lot of successful people that actually never got this because they're just more aware. They have a higher level of consciousness and they're more self-aware. So that brings a lot more free will into your life as opposed to someone that is nowhere near as self-aware. They're more just like walking on autopilot. That's what I personally think, but I don't really read about I've like in books that I've read, it even says that if you can see someone's death in a chart, you never tell them. That's, so I basically just don't go there personally.
Nick says, how do I get Micah, do you do private sessions? And I told him that depending on if you like sidereal or regular, do you do private sessions?
Oh yes, of course I do. I have a website, shereadsthestars.com.
I'll put that in the chat. Hold on.
Yeah, and it has all the information on there.
So if you guys want a chart read through sidereal, you can go through her.
For true sidereal astrology. So that what I really go deep in is, of course, so you can learn more about yourself for sure, but then also that idea of how you have been trapped, I guess you can call it that, by the matrix code and where you're being prevented from reaching, which is that midheaven highest potential. That's where everyone has a dream in life. Everyone has somewhere that they really want to be. That is that midheaven highest potential. But you're spawned stuck in that south node. And most people, they finish their life and they're still living that south node because it's comfortable, it's familiar, it's quote unquote safe. But the direction you should be following is your north node. because that's more scary, it's more challenging, it gets you out of that comfort zone.
That's how you
And
grow.
so you grow 100%, and that direction is leading you straight towards your midheaven highest potential. But the matrix doesn't want you getting there. So other parts of your chart, like different squares, oppositions, algol conjunctions, different places in your chart are also keeping you stuck in that south node. So there's so much that you have to learn to actually overcome those matrix programs, which then you have sovereignty and autonomy over yourself through self-knowledge.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So
So where do we
that's
go
the
from
depth
here?
and the way I take it.
Where do we go from here? What else would you like to talk about and share regarding your
So
work?
I guess something that's happened really recently was I think a lot of people were talking about it, Pluto going into Aquarius
Okay.
on the 19th of November. That was supposed to have happened, but that is mainstream tropical astrology. Um, when you actually look at astronomy and the visible sky, you would see that Pluto had moved into Capricorn in March 2023. So Pluto has already moved there. Now, Pluto is a generational planet. So I use traditional rulerships. I just use Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto as the extras. They weren't always considered the main planets. Usually there was just 7, not 10.
Yeah.
But Pluto, in essence, is the planet of power and control, domination. It's the transformation through death and rebirth. It's a very intense planet. But on the grand stage, when we look at the sky, wherever Pluto is placed, what constellation, that's where the power is. Currently in Capricorn, or at least it really just moved there. And Capricorn is the government, actually. It's the systems, it's the high social hierarchy, public reputation. So that is where that Pluto moved into, not Aquarius. Pluto won't move into Aquarius until 2040. And when that happens, that's when the power will be in the people, actually. So at the moment, we still are present within rulership domination, and that power is coming through in the
But
way that
would
they
you say
control.
in sidereal astrology, do you work with or believe in cusps or handover dates for that matter?
Yeah, I don't really. Sometimes I do to a certain extent. When I'm reading a natal chart, I don't use cusps. Sometimes in just like the grand stage, especially with Pluto, because Pluto moves like the slowest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll use cusps to a certain extent, but it's just left Sagittarius.
Hmm.
So
So the
um
fact that Pluto was demoted to a mini planet, Pluto was discovered and then demoted before it even revolved around the sun. Um,
yeah, demoted.
that's what it was. It became a mini.
Yeah.
It's not. They didn't consider it a planet anymore. But that doesn't affect astrology, right? It's kind of like
No.
we discover, like when they discover a new planet. It's kind of like discovering something within the body, and then suddenly you can attribute all these things to it. Now that you have this, you can attribute new things to it. I feel like that's kind of like how it is when a new planet is discovered, which brings me to my question. That mini moon, that little asteroid, right? That mini moon that's kind of doing that. Does that play a
Yeah.
part in anything, or is it too small?
The mini moon being which one?
There's an asteroid that is in orbit for. They're calling it a mini moon. I don't know if you've heard that yet.
I've heard of like Jupiter's moon. Is it that one?
No, not Jupiter. Europa. No, no, no. I'll have to find it. I'll send it to
Yeah.
you on Insta. But yeah. So okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I hadn't actually heard of that one, but yeah, just the idea of Pluto, because Aquarius is the collective. It's humanitarianism, it's knowledge, and futuristic technology, things like this. Just like rebellion, basically, revolutions kind of happen when Pluto's in Aquarius, which that's what a lot of people are talking about now. That the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, I think it was like the French Revolution and a revolution in America or something. But Pluto doesn't actually move until 2040. Now, I do also believe in collective hive mind can actually create reality. So
Hmm.
considering the fact that this went viral and very few people have actually looked at the sky and realized that, okay, but the physical Pluto is actually still in Capricorn. So
Hmm.
I think because the rulers or the controllers, I guess you want to call it that, the
Right.
ones really high up, feel like they're running out of time if you believe in great resets.
Yeah.
So they want to actually control the population's thoughts so that they can create the reality that they want.
Well, that's
So
why we had Agenda 21, and then we had Agenda
yeah,
30, and then now it's Agenda 2. Now it's Agenda 40. So go
yeah,
figure what happens in 2040, right?
yeah. Because what's interesting is that with Pluto in Capricorn, naturally, whoever's in rule or the government systems, etc., they hold the power. That's where Pluto is currently. But they really want to utilize Pluto in Aquarius energy simply by the mainstream following astrology believing that Pluto is in Aquarius is actually going to bring in those energies. So it's kind of like a double whammy where they can utilize both to their power, basically.
Um, so when you read a chart, are there any specific alignments, a trine, a square, opposing sign, whatever, that really gives off a red flag on the chart? Is there a way you can look at someone and be
And
like, this person can be dangerous, or this person's really unstable, or things of that nature? Can you see that in a chart right away? And what would you consider it?
yeah, well, I suppose that I could. I haven't with the people that book with me. Maybe there's some sort of, energy of the type of people that book in with me.
Right.
More or less, they're usually very aware. They had to be aware enough to discover the niche astrology that I practice. Although, if you're going to be looking at that, it's going to be 12th house or 8th house, especially. Those are going to be like the really, dark houses.
Hmm.
And then it's going to be a malefic planet situated there, like Saturn, or I don't really read Pluto, like the generational planets specifically for a person because they move too slow. So they're just more like extras in the chart. But really, Mars or Saturn situated in either of those houses. And then it would have to be negatively aspected by many other malefic planets or
Right.
strong planets like the sun. Um, and then maybe even conjunct Algol, which doesn't happen in everyone's chart, but Algol is obviously bringing a lot of difficulties in
Right.
whatever conjunction it's having. So I only read Algol, the fixed star, in a 1 to 3 degree tight orb conjunction with
Hmm.
usually a very personal planet like the sun, the moon,
So when she says one to
or
three
yeah.
degree guys, well, actually, it would be different with sidereal because if you're talking degrees in tropical in the back, right there, that chart right there,
Yeah.
there's 30 degrees. So you're talking 1 to 3 degrees would be the first 3 degrees in the sign, right?
Well, it's just a 1 to 3 degree orb with the next planet conjunct it.
Oh, okay, okay,
So,
okay.
yeah. So, but it does bring up the point that you mentioned that reading the degrees is different in true sidereal astrology because all the constellations are different in size. So you can't really use the simple all 3 degrees or 3 decans mean the same as another third decan because some are shorter constellations than others. So it differs a lot. But yeah, in regards to the Algol conjunction, that's just counting the degree difference between the
You know,
conjunction.
about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it came out, or sidereal finally came out, and everyone was freaking out because their sun sign changed and this and that. And it was rejected so virulently that they just got rid of it and they went right back to tropical. Do you remember that?
Yeah, what's interesting is that NASA had a big part to play, I think, in 2013 of bringing out Ophiuchus and making that very popular. And I don't know about anybody else listening, but I'm not the biggest fan of NASA at all. So,
No.
yeah, so I find that very suspicious. And the thing is that not a lot of people took it. But what's interesting is that the people who have found true sidereal astrology very quickly integrate the 13th sign, which, in my opinion, the zodiac is an alchemical wheel, and the divisibility by 12 makes a lot of sense, of 12, I mean. But as soon as you add in that 13th sign, you've kind of broken the nature's alchemical wheel, simply because when you actually look at it in the sky, the zodiac means circle of animals, and they literally make a perfect circle with Polaris, the North Star, in the very center. And when you add Ophiuchus, it's sitting on the house of Scorpio. It's just the foot that intersects the line. And then if you look, you'll also see Cephas.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says the serpent will bite the heel of the horse and the rider will fall off. Well, Ophiuchus is the serpent bear, right? It's the man with the basket, and the snake is actually serpents. It's facing Sagittarius. So the snake head will literally bite the horse and the rider will fall off. So they did encode this in the Bible too. The way I explain it is it's like 90 or 95% tropical, and then they just sneak in a little sidereal too, because the Bible was Eastern influence too. I just haven't gotten that deep into it. But why does Ophiuchus get such a bad rap? It didn't do anything.
No, it didn't. It's still there. It's still very present, and I don't think that we should ignore it. Although it's just when I'm reading a chart that I'm not paying attention. I'm not including a 13th zodiac sign. I'm reading the Ophiuchus, the sort of, the serpent bearer, the medicinal man, the kind of Kundalini spiritual energy in Scorpio. I combine them basically. Instead of adding in an extra one, I just put the two together because they are overlapping and intersecting. Although, yeah, if you what do you think of the 13th sign of Ophiuchus? Would you include that, or what would you do?
Well, from my understanding, the sun with the ecliptic, right? Ophiuchus is not part of that.
No, it's sitting on top. It's like it's making a perfect circle, but then as soon as you would include Ophiuchus, it goes up and then down because of the constellation being sitting on top.
I think that 13 is a bad number, but that goes back to October the 13th, Friday the 13th, 1307, when Jacques de Molay and the Knights Templar were brutally burned alive and chased underground by the Catholic Church because they were getting too powerful. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. The 13th, maybe it's tied into that. The way my mind works is I think of 5 scenarios at the same exact time, and my brain just tries to filter out what makes sense to me. And I'm wondering if Ophiuchus is demonized because it's 13, or because it's breaking up the perfect wheel over there, or just I don't know. But I am glad that you don't use it, because it makes it's a little easier for someone like me to understand someone like you when you don't use it. And you're like, no, I'm still using the 12. I'm just using the actual size of the constellations.
Yes, that's it. And I wouldn't say that Ophiuchus is necessarily demonized. Obviously, no tropical astrologer will use a 13th sign. It just, once you do that, you're going to be having to use the current sky system.
Right.
But a lot of the people who do use the current sky system with the exact degrees of the constellation, like probably 95% of them, do use Ophiuchus and count in that 13th sign. I just don't. And I do have my own YouTube video on my channel that I go into more depth about why, with like a PowerPoint and stuff.
Oh, I'll have you plug that, give your email, all that stuff in a little bit. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to leave the floor open to you to address everybody here who's interested. Let me just see if I have any comments here. We got Astro credit score. That's funny. Please, just a lot of people putting dates in there. Okay, so I'll give you about 10 minutes or so. Talk about whatever you'd like. Share your information or your where you came from or where you're going and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I can talk a little bit about myself. So, She Reads the Stars is definitely my business, and I put a lot of my time and effort into that. It's my main focus in life because I do really want to grow it. I think that once you unlock the truth about astrology, it's completely different to if I was to go up to someone and say, oh, I'm an astrologer, and they're like, okay, I'm a Virgo, what does that mean? It's like no, I don't do that type of astrology, because I don't believe that everyone's just one zodiac sign. I couldn't just, you're not supposed to be categorized into one
These are
of 12.
archetypes. These are
Yeah,
archetypes, is what they are.
exactly, the archetypes. When you even read a Sun in Virgo on someone's full complete natal chart, it doesn't even necessarily come out like the pure Virgo archetype, because it's I've never seen the chart where their sun doesn't have like at least some sort of aspect. They're always going to be placed in a house. There's always going to be some sort of correlation going on that flavors that Sun and Virgo, because it's just it. They're just plain archetypes. So astrology has been so dumbed down and simplified, and we've forgotten the importance of it. I really do think that astrology is extremely important. It's very prevalent. There's no the entire zodiac and the placement of the constellations and the cosmos is not random. It's definitely there, it's present, and it plays a huge role on the plane below through resonant correspondence. Because, as well, as soon as I discovered that the stars and the planets are actually, in my opinion, orbs of light and frequencies, that's when it makes more sense of how they, and then we live on a
Well, you look
geocentric
at
model.
pictures of the planets, right? You ever look at the pictures of the planets? They're all circles, but 4 or 5 of them are gas giants. How are they perfect circles? NASA's
Yeah,
lying to you.
exactly. That's 100%. Yeah, exactly. So that is another reason I can understand when you're going through high school and being taught by your grade 8 teacher about uh outer space. You would be like, how can a rock in so far away have any influence on us at all? That's one of the main reasons that hides the truth about astrology. Once you really realize that we're the center of the universe, and then all the planets and the stars above are just completely relevant to Earth, they are Earths basically. That's when it makes more sense of how these frequencies can resonate below, and also how the zodiac is within us as well, through how I described in our physiology and the correspondence to the placement of the zodiac as well.
Well,
So
the iron in our blood could have only come from a dying star. That's the only place that it could have come from. In fact, they teach you this when you're a kid, right? 8th grade, like you were just talking about. They call you youngsters or a young star. That's where everybody's a star. You're a star in Hollywood. You're a star. Everybody's a star. It's as above, so below.
yeah, 100%. And I created a reel about this on Instagram. An ancient quote, how they used to believe that the ancients believed that we all had a corresponding star in the sky, and that every time a human would die, that star would disappear, and that supposedly we are literally stars in the sky, and that's what they believed, which
So
is
like a
very interesting.
hologram projection almost.
Yeah, basically. And the holographic theory is very interesting as well. I don't know if anyone's read the book Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot.
Talbot.
I think that's
Michael
Talbot.
Talbot, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He got in a lot
That's
of
a
trouble for writing that, by the way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would believe so. It talks about phantom limb and how that works. When you get an amputated arm and you still feel like you have an arm, it's because of this holographic theory, or it's more than a theory, more or less.
Yeah.
And that's the side that you have to dive deep in to really grasp and comprehend how we can be influenced by the stars, basically.
That's kind of the thing right now. It's like, are we in a hologram or are we in a simulation? Are we in a hologram simulation? Is it both? Is it neither? That's kind of
I
like
feel like
right
it's I
now.
feel like it's kind of both
Yeah.
intertwined. Yeah, 100%.
So how do you
And
explain to someone that goes, how does a ball of gas affect my mood?
um I guess I would start. I'm kind of not afraid anymore to tell people that I don't think that they're balls of gas. I think they're just like lights and frequency orbs of light that resonate with us below. So I
Right.
believe I would just say it like that, and in the most comprehensible way, because if someone came and spoke to me like that, I would say, oh god, you're so far off being able to comprehend what I would try and explain to you. But I would
That's
just
one
start
way
with
that
that.
they shut you up. The other way is you get someone like me, right? And I'm trying to talk to people astrology, and they're like, "What are you, gay?" They've demonized it for
Yeah.
men so bad that men can have nothing to do with it. Not
And
realizing.
majority of the most famous astrologers of the past were all men as well.
Yeah,
So
Nostradamus, Da Vinci. I mean, you can
mhm.
go on.
Yes, so many, as well as I think it's I'm trying to remember his name. George Washington. No, that's not right. That's the American,
Oh, wait a minute.
I
Hold
think,
on.
settler or something. But George W. Carey, that's the one.
Yeah, I have that book.
Yeah, his books are really amazing. He talks the most about the tissue salts. Um, and that's where I really learned the most about the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 essential tissue salts of the body,
Right.
and how the Bible is really talking about the cosmos and the process of our physiology as
It
well.
is.
And
Isn't it
that's,
amazing that
yeah,
people are taking this book literally still in the year
I
2024?
know. They really are. They really, really are, which it was never intended to be taken like that at all. And once
You're right.
you once
Mhm.
you actually learn how to properly read and comprehend the Bible, as well as so many of those other ancient texts like the Vedas, everything starts to fall into place and you actually can understand it. It doesn't feel like you're reading jibber jabber, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have to file it. There's a book that I have I want to show you. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm wondering if you've seen it. I interviewed this man, David Matheson. Have you seen the myth of the star myths of the world?
I haven't.
It's unbelievable what he did. This is a humongous book. Hold on.
What's it about? I'm gonna write that down.
It's Star Myths of the World by David Matheson.
Yep.
Truly F me. Reagan had two astrologers. JP Morgan famously said millionaires don't need astrologers, but billionaires do. You know,
Yep.
and they just the most amazing thing about this world is not that we've been lied to. It's that all these books are still here and you can get them
Mm.
through Amazon and you can read what they've lied to you about.
Yeah, but most people don't. Because the
Christy
elites of
says
the world.
the
Yep.
Vedas, I study the sutras. Okay.
Yeah.
Christy just got certified as a yoga teacher today, like a certified, like across the board yoga teacher.
Oh,
She's
that's
been in the
awesome.
she's been in the
Congrats.
chat. So what were we just talking about? Well, we got a
Yeah,
couple minutes left. So what I'd
yeah.
like you to do, Amelie, is, and I'll have you back, in a little while if you would like. We talk on Insta. So if you wanna,
Yeah, we do. And you'll come onto my channel as well. So everyone
yeah,
make sure
I
you
could
watch
do my
that
I
video
could do my
too.
presentation there for sure. Tell
Yep.
everybody where to find you, how to book a reading, your social medias, everything that you want to share.
Awesome. So yeah, basically you can look at my website, shereadsthestars.com. That's got obviously all the main information about what I do, the different readings that I offer, typically up to 75 minutes long, and you can easily book through there, or my email is on my website as well if you have any questions. And then I do have a YouTube channel. I'm very interested in health as well, natural health. So most of my videos on there are about health, but it's just Amelie Gillera. You're gonna have You'll write it in the. No one can spell my last name, I know, so you'll probably write that down, Micah, won't you?
Yeah. Hold on, I'll put it in the
And
chat.
perfect. And then my Instagram I use quite a lot is She Reads the Stars. So I just post lots of different content on my Instagram page as well. So you can always keep up to date with different things going on.
There, I just put your name in there. Well, thank you so
Yep,
much
that's
for
right.
coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, guys, for being here. And this is wonderful. I was on twice. Emily, hang out for a minute, guys. We'll talk to you later. Take care.